So today we're going to talk about Meshmixer. Meshmixer is a free software to create models for 3D printing specifically. It's quite a powerful software and also quite intuitive to use. If you want to go on meshmixer.com, you can download it and find out more about it. In this video, we'll have a look at the main tools and an introduction on how to use it. So when you open Meshmixer, you are presented with this interface, and you're able to import models that you've created somewhere else, or maybe you've 3D scanned. If you just have a mobile phone, for example, you can use 123D Catch or Memento to scan real-world objects and use either as reference to create some accessories for it or to modify and print it. You can also import Meshmixer models that are already included with the software. So for example, we can import a bunny. So the mesh is here, and you can orbit around it pressing Alt and click. If you notice in the main window as well, there was a shortcuts manual. So you can have a look at that and learn more about the hotkeys and other keys to navigate and use the software. So besides the model, it shows you one of the printer beds, and you can change it here on the top right corner. So if you already know what you're gonna 3D print with, this is useful to have an idea of the proportions with the printer. And I would say always plan in advance, because depending on the material and on the printer you're using, there will be limitations. So do some research before you create anything. So we can hide the printer bed by going into View and untick Show Printer Bed, or hit Ctrl-Shift-P. And from here, let's analyze this model. So Meshmixer is pretty good at helping us to see if a model is good to be printed. So for example, this model right now is not good, and Meshmixer is telling us with this blue line along this edge and this pink stripy texture inside to show us the back faces. So the normals for this model are pointing outwards, and we can see the inside. This is not good because 3D printed models need to be watertight, so it needs to be an enclosed surface. We need to close this. One way we can do this, Meshmixer is really good at having automated ways to fix models for us. We go to Analysis and Inspector. So to highlight the errors, it's gonna come up with these pins, and you can choose to fix it either by clicking on the pin, or you can click here on Auto Repair All. Also, the way it's gonna fix the errors, you can decide if it's gonna be a flat fill for these open borders, minimal fill, or smooth fill. So if we select flat fill and click on the pin, it's just gonna close it flat like that. But if we want more of a curved and soft surface there, we can select smooth fill, and this is gonna create this bulge below it. So once we have a finished model, we can use all this tool to measure the dimensions as well, and calculate what's the best orientation and create support structures that might be needed for the model to print properly. Let's have a look how to actually sculpt and edit our meshes. So first of all, besides the bunny that we've imported, we can add different primitives. So we have, for example, this donut, and if we drag it on top of the mesh, it's gonna scale and align to it. So we can move it and place it wherever we like. And also from the menu, you can see we can change the dimensions and give it an offset from the surface. So, and also move it inside with this tool. But obviously, another thing you don't want is floating meshes inside other meshes. And that one, the printer won't like that. So we can accept that. And if we go to View and Show Object Browser, we can see that the two meshes have been sort of merged together because there's only one object listed there. If we can hit W for a wireframe as well and see how dense the mesh is. So it's a pretty good density. We can use the wheel to zoom in, get inside the model, and we see how the two meshes are sort of been merged together, but they're not continuous. So this is not the best to have. But what you can do, once you have put together all your meshes and sculpted, is go to Edit and Make Solid over here. And this is gonna create a proper solid mesh that will be good to be 3D printed. So if we look over here, see there's no extra parts running across it. And it's also good to give it a sort of consistent density if you have meshes of different density being merged together. If you're happy with this, you can also, of course, choose more of an accurate meshing, what density, a minimum thickness, more advanced options, and when you're happy with it, click Accept. Besides primitives, we also have a number of different useful tools. So, for example, if we want to add some other ears to our bunny, let's put some ears on his back. We can change the sides and the bulge, different option, offset it. There we go. So this has been merged together, and you can see how this has a different color. This is a face group. So every new object that you add before you make solid is going to have a different face group. This is useful for when you sculpt your model or edit it in any way, as you can limit the selection to just the face group. So if you go to the next tool in the column, you have Select, and once Select is clicked, you have this sphere appearing, which is your brush. You can change the size from the menu here, or a quicker way is to press the spacebar, and this menu is gonna come up and is gonna help you change the size, which might be more useful if you wanna see live what size you need, and the strength of the brush as well, which for selection obviously doesn't matter. This will work for a sculpt. Also, you can color your models in Meshmixer, but you will need to be able to see the face groups if you're working on it. So from this menu you can choose whether to see face groups or the color, which for now is only gray because we don't have any color. You have other options to how to see the model. So the wireframe, for example, a more of a blocky look. We go back to the smooth one and back to the face group mode. So once we have selected our size, we can start sort of painting on it, and this is our selection. If you double click, the selection is going to expand only to the face group we are in, while if we can clear selection on the left here in the menu, we'll need to reactivate select from here, or if you press S, this is also going to activate selection. So besides double clicking, we can select a part and then press E. This is going to expand to all the connective meshes. So the whole mesh in this case is going to be selected. If we add another object besides this won't be selected, of course. So once we have a base that we are happy with, we can go on and sculpt. And here again, you can limit your sculpting to face groups. So if we go down in filters, we can take restrict to group. And our brush right now is on drag. And then we have other brushes like flatten. And see, this is only affecting this face group that we started painting on. Pinch, spikes, attract, we're going to talk about this in a wee while. For example, if we select inflate, we can see how the restrict to group option will be more obvious. So only the polygons on the face group here are going to be affected. You can see this preserve the shape while this is being inflated. So as I just mentioned, another powerful way to create something, for example, especially if you're creating an accessory for something and you need parts to match, you can use the attract tool. And you'll notice here that a new object is being created when we have added our ears. So that's also handy in case you need to go back, but it can be quite messy and starts to get confusing. So we can get rid of our first bunny here. So I'm going to show you how the attract works. Let's go to Meshmixer. And for example, in miscellaneous, you have some useful tools like pins and horns. It's quite handy to have already. Well, let's create something simple. So if we go to our primitives, just create a cube on the side. So because I've dragged it in the world and not on the mesh, it's just gonna create a cube that you can resize and move and do anything you want with it. For this example, I'm just gonna move it over here. And this is gonna become our attract target. So if you see in the object browser, there's this magnet icon, and if you hover it, it says set as target. So this means this can become the mesh target to what we're gonna track the other mesh to. So if we activate this, our cube is gonna change. You can see sort of this transparent material. This is to help us attract and see better what's happening. So once we have set this as target, we can go to sculpt. We'll need obviously to select what object we want to edit and attract to it. So we select our bunny, go to sculpt, and in our brushes select the attract brush. So we can move in here and start painting. So we want to attract this part of the bunny to our cube. Now we can increase the strength and the size as well and see how faster this works. So you can see that slowly this mesh is being moved to our target. We can attract more and more, create more surface. So these two surfaces are now flush with each other. This can be helpful also to create two objects that you need to connect. But remember, if you want to unite them, there need to be some intersection. They can be right on flush because the booleans, this is in any software, won't work unless there's even like a 0.001 intersection between the two meshes. Okay, so let's say that that's what we want to print. I know, it's very nice. Deselect the set as target for our cube, and we can delete it because all we want is to make that part flat. And we can analyze our model and see if it's ready to be printed. So you can see in our materials as well, we can have previews of materials here. And again, we're seeing different colors here because we're into the face group selection. So if we want to just see the colors, in this case our materials sort of affect the colors as well. We just activate color here, and we can try different materials on. I would suggest you do this at the end if you want, because it's quite hard to see what's happening with these materials active. If you apply this sort of half white material, this is what is like a Meshmixer material, which is gonna tell you what the analysis said, where are errors or where supports are needed, as well as showing open borders and back faces. So we have finished creating our model. We can go into analysis. We need to select our model first as well. Meshmixer is good at telling you when something is wrong, why, and what you need to do. We go to analysis, and you can see the dimensions of your model. So obviously this is very useful. Again, we can bring back the printer bed by going to View, Show Printer Bed. So if we know that we are printing with Markforged Mark 1, we can see how this looks. Obviously this is penetrating the bed now. So what we need to do is go into Analysis and Orientation. And Meshmixer is going to calculate for us the best orientation for our model and give us an indication of the strength, the support volume needed with the green. So the strength in red, the support volume needed with the green, and the support area blue. You may want to create support structures. You can do this if you own a 3D printer with the 3D printer software, but Meshmixer allows you to do that in a software itself too. So as you can see, again, you have presets for popular 3D printers, and so this will affect how much support is needed to be created. So we selected replicator 3mm default. We have an angle threshold of 35. You can check other settings and see if you want to change anything, and then generate support. Let's see. If we go to our face group mode, we can see how the support structures have different face groups from our bunnies. And this can actually be converted to solid and edited as well. There won't be many situations where you want to edit this unless you want these sort of tree structures to just use it to create something and sculpt something, do some art. So once you're happy with it, you can convert to solid. You can either choose to create a new object with all this or replace existing. And Meshmixer suggests that you save a .mix file before continuing. That's because if you don't save a .mix file, you will lose maybe all the face groups and other features. So if you need to work on these again or in the future, you'll want to save a .mix file. So let's select replace existing. It's gonna calculate. So this is our whole model. So as you can see from start to finish how flexible Meshmixer is. And when you're done, you can go to File and Export for 3D print. You can export a number of different formats: OBJ, STL, VRML, and at the same time you can also import at the beginning all these types of formats. So I hope this was useful, and if you have any questions, comment below. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more, and hopefully speak to you next time. Bye!